So if you're considering divorce, you might believe that there's really only two ways. Either do it yourself, go get some forms at the courthouse and try to figure everything out on your own, or you have to go hire a really big, mean lawyer, fancy, expensive lawyer, and go fight it out in court. But there's actually four distinct ways, four paths that you can take to get divorced. And not everybody understands that. So the very first thing, no matter who you meet, whether it's an attorney or a mediator or a divorce coach, the first question you want to be asking is, what are the options for getting my divorce done? So let's break down all four options so that you can decide which option is best for your family. So the perception out there of divorce is that it's going to be a war, that you have to go to court and you have to go to battle. Most people, the first thing they do when they realize that divorce is probably happening, they're going to call their best friend, they're going to call their sister, they're going to call their mom. And that person's going to tell them, you need to go and hire the bulldog lawyer, the lawyer that's going to go out there for blood, because that's the common knowledge out there, is that it has to be a battle. The reality is the way that you actually start your divorce sets the tone for how it will ultimately play out. And you can actually get divorced without ever having to step foot in a courtroom. Now, it still is a legal process. Everybody is required to at least get a judge's signature, but you can do that without having to go to court. You can do it without lawyers. You can do it with lawyers and still avoid court. Unfortunately, there's huge misconceptions out there about divorce. And what happens is when you do follow that well-meaning advice from the people that care about you and you run out there and you hire the bulldog, now they are going to exploit you because you're afraid, you're overwhelmed. They know that. And there are lawyers out there who they live for the kill. That's what they want to do. They want to fight it out in court. They want those huge court fees. And they know you're coming to them overwhelmed and afraid. And so they're going to convince you that if you don't file for divorce today, if you don't go for the jugular, you're going to be the one who loses out in the divorce. So how you begin your divorce really is everything, because you can actually completely negotiate every single part of your divorce without ever going to court, without ever getting a lawyer, and you can actually file everything on the same day. And so at the beginning, it is essential to educate yourself on the options that exist out there for you, because once you've gotten wrapped up into the system, once aggressive lawyers have you and your soon-to-be ex-spouse in the adversarial system, it is so hard to unwind that process and get out of it. So what we want to do is from the beginning, you want to examine which one of the four pathways to divorce, which one of those paths is going to be the best fit for your family. There are certain people who do need that aggressive lawyer. They need the adversarial process because the other party is so high conflict. That's the only way that their divorce will go. But that's actually a really small percentage of the population. In fact, 95% of divorces in Florida don't even go to trial. So maybe the DIY path is right for your family. Maybe mediation without lawyers is right for your family. Maybe the collaborative divorce approach is right for your family. But you won't know that unless you've had a meeting with the right type of attorney to actually give you those options. Too many law firms give you the one size fits all, and they're actually invested in the nastier your divorce gets, the more and more and more they make on your case. And so it's really important for you to educate yourself before you begin meeting with attorneys to find out if they're that type of attorney who's loving your fear, loving the conflict, because they're going to exploit it and mine it so that they make a profit off of your divorce. Or if you're going to find divorce professionals, whether that's a mediator, whether it's attorneys or not, or a divorce coach who's actually going to help you through the process so that you come out on the other side poised and prepared for your next chapter. So the first option is the DIY divorce. Unfortunately, I believe that the numbers right now are showing 80% of folks end up in this option, not out of really choice, but because they can't afford anything else. And actually, a DIY divorce is appropriate for certain people. If you and your spouse don't have children, if you don't have significant assets, or if you just agree on everything, if you guys both just absolutely agree, then a DIY might be your best option. I don't recommend it for most folks because it's very overwhelming. I mean, there is a reason why divorce lawyers have a job. There are lots and lots of deadlines and filings and paperwork and pleadings, and there's a process and there are rules of procedure that have to be followed, even in the most amicable of cases, that I feel like when we are busy people out there with lives and jobs that it's a lot of stress to put on yourself to try to DIY it. So that if you are somebody who has at least some means, I do not recommend DIY. I know that there are legal document preparers out there who can help you with that process. It's definitely the cheapest process, but I don't think that it's the right fit for most people. So option number 2 is mediation. You can do mediation with or without attorneys. Another little known fact is that actually all divorce cases in Florida, even the most high conflict adversarial trial cases, they are all still required to try mediation at least once. And so you can go to mediation with your attorney in a regular traditional case where both of you have lawyers and you both sit down with a mediator. It's usually a marathon of a day. It's a whole day process after you've gone through filing for divorce, serving each other the papers, going through the mandatory disclosures. You do end up sitting down with a mediator and try to resolve your case. And that's required before you ever get to go see the judge. The other option with mediation, and it's absolutely something that I offer, is you can go without attorneys at all. This is for the couples who they both agree that they do want a process that's more streamlined. They want a process that is less expensive, but they do think that they can work together and there is some level of trust. So maybe the relationship has fallen apart. You need to move on. But you do believe the other person isn't going to take advantage of you. There aren't power imbalances. What we call this is pro se mediation, that you don't have lawyers representing you. It's something we offer at our office. In fact, I offer a process called Kids First Mediation, where we work on the parenting plan first without attorneys, and then we move on to the rest of the divorce. And then at the end, if you need to speak with an attorney who's collaboratively trained to review your documents, you can. I love doing that. Unlike attorney-assisted mediation, Kids First Mediation or pro se mediation is done over a series of small meetings. That I find that when you don't have an attorney, it's very easy to get overwhelmed with all the components of your divorce. So by handling your divorce in small chunks over a period of maybe 3 to 6 weeks, I find that to be more effective than trying to do the marathon settings. So mediation is a wonderful option. It does require, if you're going to do it without attorneys, it does require a level of trust and integrity. If you believe there are trust issues, I think attorney-assisted mediation might be the better process for your family, but definitely feel free to reach out so that I can figure out with you which one of those is the right fit. The third option is collaborative divorce, and this the pathway I think I'm the most excited about as a divorce attorney. Collaborative divorce is a beautiful process, and I had really wished that my own divorce, we could have used that process, but we weren't quite the right fit, and it was just coming on the scene back then in 2008. Today, collaborative divorce is really thriving in Tampa Bay and throughout Florida. So what the process is that you have 2 attorneys who are collaboratively trained. You have a financial neutral, usually a CPA, who's trained as a certified divorce financial analyst. And then you have a licensed mental health counselor who acts as the facilitator, similar to a mediator. And similar to pro se mediation, you go through a series of meetings, but it's a collaborative team meeting. And this style of divorce really is perfect for people who have high assets and also have children, because you might already be thinking 2 lawyers, a therapist, a CPA, that sounds really expensive. I mean, I don't want to mince words with you. It's definitely not cheap. However, it is far less expensive than going to trial. And so if you're a couple who has significant assets, maybe you have a business, maybe you have inheritances, retirements, things that investment accounts, different things that, multiple properties. This process is much better suited than spending years in protracted litigation over those issues. And so it brings a collaborative approach. It's also really great for people who do have maybe some sensitive issues in their case. Maybe you have a special needs child and we need a little bit more guidance because maybe your soon-to-be ex-spouse hasn't really been involved in the care of that child. And so we really need a collaborative approach to make sure when that child's spending time with their other parent that they're equipped for that. Maybe that party struggles with substance abuse. Maybe they're high conflict. So a lot of people think, oh, I can't do collaborative divorce because my spouse is mad and my spouse is angry. It's actually perfect for couples with high conflict if everybody's bought into it. So the idea is we all sign a collaborative participation agreement. And what that means is we all agree to settle all issues outside of court. And if we impasse, then everybody has to start over from the beginning, and you cannot use the two attorneys you just worked with. This way, everyone is invested and the team reaching an agreement at the end instead of ending up in court. So the final option, number 4, to get divorced is litigation. And of course, in my practice and at our office, litigation is always the last resort. There are some people, some folks, that's the only option due to the really compelling circumstances in their divorce case. Maybe there's abuse. Maybe there are issues with safety issues with the children. Maybe somebody is trying to alienate their children from them completely. There are situations where we have no other choice but to end up in court, but it really should be a last resort. Even though I believe that litigation, for the very most part, actually damages and traumatizes family because it makes the parents have to attack each other. It literally pits them against one another. And then they're expected at the end of the case to go out there and raise their children as co-parents. And so there's a lot of dissonance between those two things. They don't align, but sometimes there really is just no other option. And if that's the case, maybe that your soon-to-be ex-spouse, they want that fight. They just haven't worked through all the emotions that maybe you have to get into a place of peace of knowing this is the right step for your family. Maybe they're not there yet and they just want that fight. So no matter what you do with the best of intentions, you're going to end up at trial. We still offer traditional divorce litigation services at our office. It's just that's not what our business model is based on. We're not going to talk you into filing things. We're not going to encourage you to go to court. However, if you end up in court, you will be protected and advocated for, but still with our values being front and center to make sure that it doesn't get so nasty that you have no prospect of actually co-parenting when it's over. So most folks end up in those two extremes, either the cheapest option, the DIY, or they end up at trial, which is the most expensive option. So just because you're in trial with these fancy lawyers and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on it doesn't always mean it's the best outcome for you. And just because you're doing everything as cheaply as possible by doing it yourself, it actually could end up costing you more money in the long run because you really don't know all the things that a divorce attorney might know to make sure that everything's done correctly. You really need to decide if having an attorney assist you through the process is going to be the right fit for you. And if you're curious whether it's mediation without lawyers, whether it's mediation with attorney assistance, or whether it's the collaborative divorce process, if you're curious about which one of those might be your best fit, reach out to me. That is exactly what we'll discuss during our consultation.